Welcome to Common Sense Investing. My name is Cameron, and today I am introducing you to one stock on the stock market in 10 minutes or less. What stock am I introducing today? This is Auxly, and yes, they are a cannabis grower. This is Auxly, and yes, they produce cannabis products like gummies. And yes, this is Auxly producing other cannabis products. Okay, whoa, stop, Cameron. Let's discuss the elephant in the room right off the bat. Yes, cannabis stocks are something that most investors these days will not invest in. There was a cannabis craze 8 to 9 years ago where cannabis stocks went absolutely to the moon. They have since crashed because they weren't able to produce cannabis profitably. It's not hard to go online and find a plethora of reasons not to invest in cannabis because people don't want to get excited and lose money again. So they are very skeptical. While nearly 50 countries have legalized cannabis for medical and/or recreational use, Canada is the only G7 country with a federally legal recreational market for cannabis. But where some investors might see crisis, problems, headwinds, sometimes this can result in opportunity. What is the opportunity here? Sometimes in our lives, we need challenges to make us better. Sometimes in the financial world, industry sectors need challenges to not only make them better, but cull the herd of some of the lower, less efficient companies and let the best companies, let the best management teams rise to the top. That has been starting to happen in the Canadian markets, where you see words here that you typically have not seen in the cannabis space before, which is efficient and profitable. The best cannabis operators are starting to produce positive cash flow, and that is really important. Where there are several different cannabis companies I could be talking about today, I am going to start by introducing Auxly Cannabis Group, Inc., XLY.TO, $211 million market cap Canadian today. So because the problem with cannabis companies was always their earnings or lack of earnings and lack of cash, I'm going to start this video here with their 3 and 6 months earnings ended June 30th, 2025. So we'll start with Auxly having $17 million of cash. They have some really high quality current assets, including accounts receivable, biological assets, and inventory for current assets of $82 million. Here, their current liabilities looks pretty ugly at $108 million. They do have $45 million of debt. This is not truly current. Basically, they have $33 million of accounts payable and $20 million of interest payable. It's not the best balance sheet I've ever seen, but it's improving, as they previously had $50 million of loans payable. It is now down to $45 million. Cash provided by operating activities before net non-cash working capital adjustments has increased from 2024 $2.2 million in 6 months to $15.6 million in 6 months, including recently $10 million of cash flow from operating activities in 1 quarter. They are producing cash. They are now using that cash to pay down that long-term debt that I talked about, which has gone from $50 million to $45 million. So they are producing cash and they are paying down their debt. That is the simple thesis here for Auxly, in my mind, is that they are improving their balance sheet. Are they also improving their income statement? Pretty significantly, yes. I mean, total net revenue has gone from $54 million in 6 months to $71 million. In this latest quarter, they had $59 million. So growth and more growth. Total expenses have actually gone down. Talk about a company that can produce revenue growth and reduce expenses at the same time. That is a twin engine for net income growth, which they have gotten massively, going from a negative $24 million in 2024 to a positive $20 million in 2025 in just 6 months. Now, yes, one of the concerns with Auxly we need to talk about is their amount of shares, 1.3 billion shares. That is not a typo. So despite this large net income for most companies, earnings per share is pretty low. Don't forget, I am not a financial advisor. I am definitely not your financial advisor. These videos are not financial advice. They are a quick introduction to a stock that I think has some potential, that I think you need to continue to go research and determine whether or not it's right for you. And if you need help, please contact a financial advisor. So getting right into some of the bare risks for me, because this is a fairly simple company, right? They produce cannabis products. They are trying to sell those cannabis products, make money, do it profitable, and produce cash to pay down their debt. Some of the risks here for me with Auxly, its share price is already up 100%. It's sitting at around $215 million Canadian market cap. I need to look harder. I'm not seeing institutions buying yet. I would like to see that for Auxly, right? Over $200 million market cap. Why aren't institutions buying? Because they're scared of cannabis. Cannabis stocks are fighting this wall of worry that they need to conquer to get more buyers and drive that share price up. In addition, yes, their debt does give me headaches sometimes. They do have various forms of debt. You need to go read through their debt and make sure that you're comfortable with it. And then, of course, the share dilution is ugly. That is the positive thesis for Auxly, but it's also one of the negative ones. 1.3 billion shares and previously had quite a bit of share dilution. Can they get rid of that share dilution? Can they start producing cash? And that takes me to the bull thesis here. Well, for me, the first impression was qualitative. The CEO did a recent interview. I will link down below in the pinned comment to that interview. They said everything that I would want to hear from this company. They sounded confident. They sounded genuine and talking about their plan, which I liked. You know, there's no hurry to do anything crazy for this company. Continue to cut expenses or control expenses, continue to produce high revenue. Let that flow down to your net income. More importantly, let that flow down to your cash. The numbers look good. And if they can keep using that cash to pay down that debt, that balance sheet looks really nice in about 12 months. And I wonder what is the next step for Auxly once that happens. One of the first things I did when looking at Auxly was compare it to a bunch of other cannabis producers. This is their EV to sales. Auxly is in white. It's really in line and in competition with other great producers like Cannara Biotech. And of course, in white, this is Auxly's revenue, which is trailing 12-month revenue and has been trending up for a long time. Operating cash flow, again, Auxly is here in white, and yes, their operating cash flow is lumpy but very strong. The only company that comes close to competing with this, again, is Cannara. Operating cash flow margin, again, Auxly in white. Not only is it high, but it has been improving. And once again, in green, the only real competitor here is Cannara and a US company called Vext. Total cash, would you be surprised to find Auxly and Cannara at the top here again? I'm not at this point. So with all the comparables I could find and all the research I've done on Auxly, I could tell you that they are a leader in the cannabis space. They're a Canadian grower of cannabis, and Canada is ahead of the game because it's the first G7 country where there is recreational cannabis allowed. These growers have been improving their skills now for years, and they are now able to do it profitably, growing, producing cash, which is very important. There's massive headwinds still, right? Making cannabis more socially acceptable, stopping the legal operations, reducing the ridiculous taxes on the industry, and then finally making cannabis legal for recreational use in more places. But the opportunity here, if you're willing, is this the bottom of cannabis? And not only is this the bottom of cannabis, but are we getting very close, or at least much closer to, uptrends, trending up, getting away from this bottom, which the industry has been in for a few years, arguably, and getting improvement in the cannabis sector, rebuilding trust? And will these company leaders in the cannabis space start to rise up and show themselves? And what will that do to share price? So that's Auxly Cannabis. What do you think about this company? What is your favorite cannabis company? I will take a look at it. I'm researching 3 or 4 others right now. As always, you've been watching Common Sense Investing. My name is Cameron. Thank you for your time.